Yo ho ho, good morning. Here we are, 1 week into the advent calendar of Lard. Today is the 7th of December, a day that will live in infamy. Infamy. They've all got it in for me, especially, I suspect, after this episode of the advent calendar. So it falls to me again to look at something different. So let's open the advent calendar and see what today's topic is. Undo the seal. Lovely seal. Must have been done by Sydney. Okay, right. So today it says scratch building. Interesting. How do you go about it? What is the design, process, tools, glues, materials and finishing that you use? And why bother scratch building at all? Well, I think this question really should be for somebody else, because if there's anybody who knows nothing about scratch building, it's me. But let me take you into my world of scratch building just for a few moments, I guess, because it's Christmas and we can do that. How do you go about it? Okay, so think of a process. Think about how you would research and plan and source materials, draw diagrams, measure up, prepare the materials you're going to use, source those materials, ensure that you've got the right things laid out, make sure you've got the right equipment, the right knives, the right kind of glue, make sure you've got something you can base it on, make sure you've got somewhere where you can safely do all this without damaging the kitchen worktop, and think about where you're going to store the item. Then throw all that in the bin, because that, I'm afraid, really isn't me. That's not my approach at all. My approach is rather more slapdash and in the moment than that. I'm not really a great preparer and planner and measurer, etc. I kind of just go with my heart and build it as it comes. So how can I turn that into a process? Well, I've tried to do that. My process is a little bit different. And it goes a bit like this. So number one, why scratch build? Okay. Well, first of all, can I use anything else instead? Do I need to scratch build this? Or is there something in my existing collection that will stand in for this building? If there's something that will do the job, then absolutely go for it. I'm not going to scratch build if I don't need to. I'm going to trawl the internet. I'm going to look at, what I could use for it. Do I need to scratch build? If the answer to that is yes, then I'm going to look for anything, that to try and make the answer no. I don't want to scratch build. I'm going to look online. First thing I do is there anything vaguely similar? Is there anything that I could buy that perhaps could just be tweaked in a tiny way to get the outcome that I want to have? I'm going to check all online sources. If it's a terrain item, I'm going to look at all the different bits and pieces and try to avoid doing it, because I don't want to. However, I'll look on eBay as well, see what's on eBay. eBay is a good source for this kind of stuff. So if the answer to that is no, and I've still got to scratch build it, this terrain piece, then I'm going to go to step 3. So step 3, okay, you can't find one, there's nothing like it, you're going to have to scratch build it. My approach is don't plan it, just blitz it. So I'll go into the garage. I'll look at the photos. I know in my mind's eye what I'm trying to create. I'll look at the photos. I'll research it. I'll make sure that what I'm trying to produce is, going to look like the end result that I need it to look like. But I'm going to see what the key aspects are of the model that I want to convey. But let's be honest, my modelling skills are so shit that I'll never create a masterpiece. It's always going to be something that is going to be lacking in some department. So, it's got to also have utility. I don't want it to just be used once and then throw it away. So I want it to have the ability to be used on other tables if I can. Let's face it, I'm adding to a collection, taking up space that I haven't got, but I need to get on with it. So that takes me on then to step 4. So step 4 is we're going to start the build. I've had a look at some photos. I haven't measured anything up. I haven't looked at the materials I've got. I'm just going to go into the garage and I'm going to go to my box of bits and I'm going to start the process of thinking, okay, I'm going to build this farmhouse or this emplacement or whatever it is going to be. What have I got in here that might do the job? And the first thing I look for is a base. What can I do? What's going to be the reasonable base for this? Now, my problem is, because I'm not an organised kind of person, I don't think cleverly enough about, will this base fit in a storage box that I'm going to carry this item in. I'll just find a base that I think, yeah, that looks about right. I think I can get it on that. So in the past, I've used all kinds of weird and wonderful stuff. It used to be a joke amongst many of us that I used to base my figures many years ago on beer mats, because beer mats were ubiquitous. They were everywhere, and they cut up nice and easily and make good, good cards. You could base figures on beer mats all day, every day. Now I'm looking for more everyday items that I can use. And one of the things that I found really helpful, really useful for scratch build are placemats. Placemats that you would have on your dinner table. The ones that are, they've got a nice hard side, perhaps on the top, with a nice picture on of some seagulls or sheep in a field, or the Archbishop of Canterbury, whatever it may be. But if you flip it over, they're made of cork, aren't they? So they're like a cork with a hard top. Some of them are kind of almost like an MDF in their own. And the great thing about them is, of course, they're treated so they don't bend, or they're much less likely to bend than a bit of, cardboard box. So I'm trying to pick a substance in my base which is robust enough that I know isn't going to bend or warp, because I'm going to be covering it in all kinds of stuff. And of course, the moisture will soak in and potentially warp. But coasters, placemats don't seem to have that problem. Anyway, so I'll start with that. Probably start with a coaster. I might try and cut it to shape if I need to, but probably, you know what, I'll just take it as the rectangular size, and I'll work with that. And then I'll start to build. Literally, I will go into the build box. I might use a bit of foam board. If I've got a bit of foam board lying around, a small thing, that I'll just cut it, and I won't measure it. Well, I might measure the kind of distance. I want the wall to be 4 inches or something, and I might measure a bit that's 4 inches, but most of it will come together more like a sculpture than it will a piece of engineering, planned engineering. I will create it in more quite an artistic way, using the word very liberally. Something will be created, and I will use any old things laying about. So I'm building it. Step 5, any old stuff laying around. I'm going on eBay if I need to. I'm looking in my Bix box. My Bix box has got stuff in it from Will's Scenics or Jarvis Scenics, or anything that I've accumulated over the years. Jarvis Scenics and Will's Scenics are particularly good for brickwork, or for clapperboard, or for corrugated metal. You can get plastic sheets of that, and they're really helpful because they give a top on what you're building. And get distracted by other stuff as well that you think you might want, because you're going to throw that into your bits box, and that will be useful on the next build if you don't use it for this one. So step 6, start assembling all this stuff using super glue. Okay, there's no time for PVA. This isn't Blue Peter. You're not Valerie Singleton, so there's no time for PVA. You don't need it. You need something that glues things together now, and super glue gel is your friend. That will do it for you. So choose it. It gets the job done. Nobody's got time to sit around to wait for the glue to dry, and you probably have got to get this finished for a game that you're putting on tomorrow anyway. Let's be honest. Nobody's scratch building months in advance. We're generally doing it right up to the deadline. So I'm going to use super glue to get it done quickly. And I've got to paint it yet, so I've got to put it together quick. So I'm going to use super glue. It glues everything. Glues plastic to MDF. It joins. It paints cocktail sticks to. It glues cocktail sticks to foam board. Whatever, it will glue anything. I don't really think there's anything it doesn't glue, including, of course, your own fingers, which is bound to happen. So just live with it. So let me do now. So after you've done that, what have you got? You've got something that looks like something like you're trying to create. Have a look at your ugly baby. Give it a good undercoat of black primer. So what this will do is it will make it look more uniform. At the moment, it looks like it's an assemblage of stuff all thrown together. The reason for that is that it's an assemblage of stuff all thrown together. You put the black overcoat or undercoat on it, rather, it will make it look uniform, and you'll be able to see it a bit more clearly. So what that will do is it will you'll be able to spot things that you need to add. And that's what I find is really helpful about this stage. It's like the first stage of completion, but I know that I've got to go back round it again and add other bits to it that are going to give it the character and the flavour that I need. But the main build should all be done. So I'll add those additional bits. I'll add those small pieces. And I might think actually some of these might need to be detachable. So I might do them slightly separately and add them on. So this is where you might get little bits of internal floors or outbuildings that you might want to add. They could be part of the main build or they could be separate. So add those peripherals. Once you've got those peripherals added, then I would spray it again in a black undercoat. And then paint it, starting with the base coat and working up in a series of dry brushes. Probably want it to look quite earthy. And I'm applying details as I go, using obviously paints. I'm less likely to be adding other stuff at this point. The build is probably completed, but I'm just painting it up. Then I'll be looking at what's missing. What have I missed? Go back, add some more small details, because the small details are what's going to make it look great. They're the things that are going to draw people's eye, to the little lamppost that you've got or the little newspaper stand. They're not going to notice the fact that the door frame's a bit wonky or the main wall looks like it's made of foam board. Their eye is going to fall on those small things, so they're going to help it look good at the end result. Then I also use MIG powders. So the powders that you can buy to help weather, they're really nice. You can weather an item using powders, make it look like it's been lived in, make it look like it's been subjected to the elements, make it look like it has been in action or under fire, because if it's a scratch build, you're probably more likely to be doing something that's a bit more battlefield specific. So use powders to help you do that. And only then when the powders have really settled in, should you really give it a spray, because if you spray varnish onto powders soon after you've added them, the powder will not have a good effect. It will kind of be watered down by the spray and will be lost. So powder, in good time in advance of the spray. All of these, of course, are terrain tips from a lunatic, and only you'd be unwise to follow these yourself. However, it didn't ask me in the brief to tell you what I thought you should do. It asked me to describe my process. And that is my process. Except, of course, for one final stage. One final stage in every scratch build process. The stage where you drop it on the floor and it shatters. And you think, why did I even bother doing that in the first place? Well, after that, I think I need a drink. I hope you do too. So I'm going to retire to the sofa of sincerity and have a nice glass of mulled wine and catch you next time round.